Alrighty. Hi, everyone. Goodness gracious, thank you so much for coming to hang out. Fingers crossed we're live. I'll admit, uh, maybe a little bit more of a different setup than usual, right? Not the usual black abyss, the void background that I typically have, um, and different audio because I am out and about. We're out on travel. I am over at Wild West Hacking Fest. Kind of tuning in from a hotel room. So fingers crossed, we will survive whatever hotel internet gives us, and audio isn't that bad, and I don't look too silly. Just kind of, I don't know, stuck in the corner with my uh, laptop. With that said, I don't really have another monitor. I can't really particularly see what else is going on around me. So if I need to screen share, kind of just got one vision. But I think we'll do it because look, I am not the star of the show by any means today. Very, very excited. We do have a special guest, Dahvid Schloss, and I am going to be tripping over the name as usual, as I tend to with just about every name. But so excited for Dahvid to jump in with us. He has an incredible course put together all about Windows malware development. But before I dig into all that, I do have to get the usual spiel, the announcements, I don't know, the administrivia out and about. Because look, thank you for tuning in to this live stream. But if you didn't know, this, of course, right, is going to be a live case a live stream to showcase our just hacking training shenanigans. And this is a whole new venture that I'm super excited about. It's what we've been putting together to build out a new training platform. Hey, something for exercises, something for labs, something for education and courseware and learning material. So we're stoked about it. It is all online at justhacking.com. Big thanks to folks sharing the link in the chat. And it's no secret. I do want to be absolute transparent and upfront with that. I do hope you get to dive in and play, have some fun, and learn some new things. But what we do for these live streams is that, hey, this is to kind of celebrate and show off all the cool stuff we've been putting together. So we do these just about, I think, twice a month now. We put together one live stream about the first week of the month. We aim for Fridays so we can get folks involved. Hey, maybe you're at work, maybe you're not. I don't know. But when we have a new course being released, being published the first week of every month, that's what we're aiming for. That's the goal. And we've kept that so far. I'm stoked about it. We'll do that. Another live stream to showcase the first week of each month. And then come up, think about the third week of the month. We do another live stream like this. But we're always want to be showcasing and shining the spotlight on the other instructors, the other all-star, like the leaders, the folks that are really doing the great work. And I'm so grateful because, hey, it's their incredible effort and their genius that we do want to help bring to light. So third week, we will be showcasing a little bit more of the other exercises and activities and learning vessels for you all that are those upskill challenges that can very well be free. Just about all, they are all free. And hack-along trainings. Hey, things that'll have a video to accompany them and other capture the flag or CTF archives where folks can dive in and play and practice with other CTFs that we've hosted previously. And then we can still make sure it's all still available for you. Uh, on demand, exciting stuff that I'm happy to have here. So, look, this week, of course, we're hanging out with Dahvid Schloss for the new course launch for Windows malware development, a little bit intro to shellcoders. And third week of this week, we're going to be hanging out with some forensics. Great work with Ali Hadi. And again, I'm so bad with names. I'm always embarrassed here, but very excited to now dig into even more, not so much always red team or offensive stuff, but even those blue team defensive things, digital forensics, incident response, and all that awesome stuff. But if you did want to keep tabs on that, head over to the events page on justhacking.com. That events page has the big long listing of what we're up to, what live streams we're going to be doing, hey, how we can get out and about public, all online and in person. Like if we're at Wild West Hacking Fest, like I am right now, hey, you can come hang out, say hello. Would love to see you. So please do take a look at that justhacking.com events page. Sweet. I see the link dropped in the chat. Thank you so much. Backstage production and all. And while we are super psyched and ecstatic and stoked, that's alliteration right there. Hey, everything that we've got cooking up for Windows malware development, we are going to be producing and showcasing that now with a 20% off discount code. And if you're interested, some of the other stuff that we've got going on, the dark web, cybercrime and investigations course, also still 20% off. That one is my baby, so I'm happy to get that one out the door. And while I'm here at Wild West Hacking Fest, I'm hanging out with a lot of other incredible people. One of which being Mishal Khan, who you probably had seen some time ago on a live stream, and he's our incredible instructor for a lot of that OSINT, or open source intelligence. I do see in the chat, big thanks, Neo. Big thanks, Neo Day. Yeah, we need some more of those OSINT streams, open source intelligence. Mishal is cooking up some incredible things, and I know we'll be back together again very, very soon. But please do check those out. So many cool, incredible things all coming together. But again, I'm done rambling. I think it's really now time to get to the star of the show. I don't know, Dahvid, do you need a little bit more time in the background? Could you give me a thumbs up, thumbs down in the back? I'm not sure. I see a thumbs up, sort of, kind of. Hey, coming in live. That's the fun part. If you're good with it, give me another thumbs up and I'll bring you in, my friend. Sweet. All righty.
Sweet.
Hey, Dahvid, how are you?
You know, just fighting demo gods this morning. So it's just like how you're in a random place. I'm in a very unusual location for myself, and we'll see if we get through this unscathed.
Well, I appreciate everyone's grace and their understanding, and that, well, I've got the total laptop set up from a hotel room, crappy webcam quality and headset, and we'll see how well the internet does for us. And I know you're putting together some demos and getting everything in action. So thank you so much, everyone. You know how it is with live work, but we'll do our very best. Pray to the demo gods. But Dahvid, can I ask you, my friend, if you're willing to banter while you're, maybe getting a few more things set up? Can you fill in for me who you are, what you're up to, what you've been doing these days? And I don't know, give that spiel, give the introduction for who you are.
Yeah, so Dahvid Schloss, you know, obvious name seen around. Used to be known as the best hair in the business, but cut it last year for the wedding. So it's growing back. Don't worry, we'll have it back there for sure. Known as APT Big Daddy in the hacking space. Not necessarily a name I chose, but, you know, always happy to have that conversation in person if you ever want to learn the story of how I ultimately earned the name, I guess. Been doing this for about 15 years. Started off in the military, started in communications, IT kind of work, moved over to special operations, radio operator, communicator kind of work. Injured myself quite nicely, right? And a good transition was a guy came up to me and he goes, "Hey man, you want to do cyber?" I have no clue what cyber is. I feel like I'm just a glorified box mover at this point. He goes, "Well, let's just put it as it's not defense." I was, yeah, who don't, right? Like that sounds like fun. So did that for a few years. Ended up getting out, tortured Big Four for a while, and then moved on, started leading red teams in smaller outfits, and here we are today. That's me in a quick nutshell.
Well, hey, it's incredible. I know you have quite a background and a fantastic upbringing into all this stuff. And my goodness, I have to say, I think you're a genius, dude. I think I've been looking at all the sweet stuff you've been putting together, and if it's all right, I'd love to do some show and tell. If you need a little bit more time, what I'd like to do is maybe showcase all justhacking.com and maybe tease what your WMD, such a fantastic acronym for what we put together here. Windows malware development does really play really nicely with WMD, but let me try to help get this going. Well, you might need, if you do, take whatever other time you need to get things on your side.
Yeah, for sure.
Fingers crossed. Can folks see my screen okay? Again, I am now completely blind to the live stream. Fingers crossed.
I can see it, yeah.
Okay, if you can see it, then that's good enough. Reassurance for me. But hey, this is justhacking.com. Stoked about all of the courses, paths, upskill challenges, hackalongs, and capture the flag available. But you'll see the announcement now available is our WMD1, malware development basics and shellcode loaders. So if I hop over there, you can take a look. This is Dahvid and his incredible work. It is now up and about. Should be able to go grab it. You can see it all online here. And I did want to mention, hey, special launch discount of 20% off. Dahvid, if I may ask, what you have planned for this is not just one course, not just two courses, but 3. And I think this maps extremely well to training that you provided on site at DEF CON, right? Like, hey, top tier, biggest, top of the line info security conference. And while you're training at DEF CON, that's about $1,000, right? That's $1,000 typically.
Yeah. So I like to joke I was probably the inaugural trainer because the default page that they had for when they kicked off DEF CON training was my page. So I like to think that I was it. I was the guy. They were like, this is what we're doing. But it's what we're planning here for right now. Try to release in the near future is that first course that we gave at DEF CON 30. Yeah, I would say it's a little bit on the older side, but also the fun fact is I was just looking at the CrowdStrike logs on the machine here because I was trying to pull stuff off. The very last lab from that training, CrowdStrike today has only said it's a low, and this isn't like complex changes that we're making to the malware throughout the course. So not in from part 1, but what we would get from part 3. So the last lab out of part 3, which is more of the dynamic AV evasion techniques and things that you can do. CrowdStrike saying is a low risk item. So I found that kind of funny. I find malware dev pretty funny in general. So if you can start to get around some of these larger EDRs that spend a lot of money on just some very basic concepts, moving forward from part 3 to maybe 4, 5, 6 down the line on like more advanced techniques, you're going to be having so much fun with it. If you're like me, like a maniac,
Well, I am ecstatic, and I think it's just phenomenal in that, look, it's all the videos, it's all the labs, it's all the activities. I think looking through, like just thumbing through the different material, it doesn't look like the syllabus, so to speak, is jam-packed full. I think there is much, much more emphasis on the lab environments. And hey, getting you, the student, anyone tuning into this, hands-on keyboard to be able to put together malware on your own. You're not showcasing any code to be, something you can just copy and paste. We want you to write it. And there's some small, simple stuff, I think, at the beginning. And if I could get your kind of crash course on here, I see a little bit of Mythic. I see a little bit of mention of Metasploit, but then you write it yourself, right? Could you give me just that, I don't know, crash course on your course?
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, so like a basic concept that I learned from military days was it makes no sense to try to just jump right into things if you don't understand how they work, right? You can't clear a room if you don't know how to do it slowly or you don't know the rules of the engagement, right? And the same thing with malware or programming or basically anything in IT. There are rules to how things work, right? So we could, in theory, just give you straight up the code and you would go and take it, you'd copy and you'd paste it in. You'd be like, oh, it works. I can execute code. But what happens when those things are banned, right? A great example, the very first malware that you're going to write in the course is what I call the tutorial soup. It's, you take Metasploit shellcode, you dump it right as the very first thing inside the program. Then you call virtualic, then you call like memcopy or RTL move memory or whatever language you're using, move that in, right? Create thread, wait for single object. And while that's been taught many, many, many times across different trainings, for sure, it's taught because it's the very basic of code execution. It follows the same 3 rules: a place for your code to be executed, a way of creating or executing that code, and then holding it open, because programs are just like scripts. They want to close themselves unless you tell them, well, let's hold on a second, right? So we were working through that incrementally. I think that's the right word. I may make up English. Who knows? English is tough on Fridays, So we want to work up from that, because while virtualic, create thread, wait for single object are great, they work out in a basic level. It's very obvious, but there's so much other there's so many other functions that we can use within the Win32 API or even other programming languages to where you don't necessarily need to call those 3, right? You can call others. Just understanding those basics now, you can get that into your head and you can go, oh, okay, yeah, I need to do this. I need to do X, Y, Z, whatever it may be. And so that's what we're really trying to push here in this course is like learn the incremental steps. Everything that we're going to do is build off of each other. And then as you start going into part 2, that gets into more advanced TTPs of execution, like process injection and finding processes without alerting AVs and doing that in a safe way, bypassing static analysis, bypassing dynamic sandbox enumeration, right? Like it all has to build upon each other, because if you just do it right off the bat, you don't understand what's going on. When you get caught, how do you increment from it, right? So it's a really big opportunity to kind of find those building blocks and work into it.
One thing I love, I was walking through some of the course material, and I don't know if folks got to see it as we were scrolling around, but it absolutely has your voice, your style, your tone, and that is just a breath of fresh air. It's a lot of fun. It's great to show that personality and all that it's up to, and without a doubt, something that we get to see even just the very start. Well, it is that shellcode loaders kind of kick things off, some of that obfuscation, and then going further and further in the upcoming courses for that AV evasion and more stuff that you'll dig into. I am so stoked. I'm so excited to have this kind of out and about, because I just think it's so cool. It feels like real offensive security, pen test, malware development, red team. That's the sweet stuff that's sexy and cool. So genuinely, thank you for helping put this together.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the few skill sets in red teaming specifically that is so, I don't want to say undervalued, but it feels undervalued, right? Because it seems so daunting to get into. When we think of malware, we're usually thinking of like these extremely complex systems and execution of obfuscation and some of the, I guess, dumbest malware that I've ever seen be successful and execute ransomware is like the simplest of things, like concatenating strings in a hex form and then converting it into text on PowerShell. Like just something as simple as that can get through millions of dollars worth of research and equipment. And it's, once you realize that it's not as complex and it really does end up being just a cat and mouse game between, the threat actors and the defenders, you start to realize like, oh, just doing it unique is enough to start to bypass things. Oh, yeah. And then, now we're starting to get into the opportunity where more of our client base, if you're in consulting especially, is actually training how they fight, right? Like the worst part about a red team that you can do is not give the client an opportunity to learn exactly what realistic looks like, right? Not everyone's going to be a nation state. We're not all going to have 0 days and all this cool stuff. But like most criminal, like they just write something like a custom loader and then boom, they're in, they're good to go, right? And it's nothing fancy. It's just really simplistic. And so that's the hope. That's the dream. Hopefully one of you cries from joy because you realize how simple it is. But yeah, I don't know. Did you want to jump into a quick demo? I mean, I thought I was going to be able to get the malware on here, but CrowdStrike keeps kicking it off. So I do have the very first obfuscator though, and we can kind of walk through what that obfuscator looks like.
Yeah, if you are willing and ready to do some of that, demo, show and tell, it would be awesome to see what you've got cooking up. But I do want to make sure you're all good. Bummer, sorry, I know we're shuffling around with the technical difficulties out and about, but we'll make it happen if you're up for it.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys don't believe me, we can always just go into a Discord call later and, have some fun. No, I mean, this is not praying to the demo gods hard enough is really what it is, right? Let me make sure. All right. Can you see the screen?
Let me pull it up here and fingers crossed. How's text size for folks tuning in? Again, forgive me. Don't have the best monitor display, so if anyone's able to let me know if it needs to be bigger, smaller, whatever. I don't know if we need to go all the way in on the Explorer side.
Yeah, I don't know why it's jumping that way. All right, yeah, let's do a 2x. That cool. Seems like it would be good, right? Maybe expand it out a little bit. Yeah.
I think some of the immediate questions are going to be like, hang on, what the heck? What about, why are we doing this Python stuff? I thought we were going hardcore C, Win32 API, LEET, absolute right from assembly. What's up? Why are we doing this Python stuff?
Right. So, you got to think where you execute your code versus where you create your codes, two entirely different areas, right? And if you can simplify something, simplify it. Like there's no reason to try to create some custom encoder that's going to do something simple out of C++ just because you wrote your initial code in C++, right? So like in our malware that we'll write throughout the course is all in C++ using Win32 API. It's super simple and easy, right? And we'll have a decoder on that side, but maybe you don't want to have on your Kali machine, or if you're running something where you're not running VS Code or some simple IDE, like Python's simple to write. Like it's pretty straightforward, right? So big thing is kind of learning two different areas of how you can code things in. Now, are we going to write our malware in Python? Nah, because most places aren't going to have Python, right? They're not going to have it on the endpoint. But it does help us when we want to create an encoder. So in this case, like the encoding style is absolutely my favorite, is a Caesar cipher, right? And if you don't know what a Caesar cipher is, it's pushing things to the left or to the right, within a reason. For our case, computer code only goes from like 0 to 256, right? So you can't go over 256. And so we have to handle that properly. And if you don't know how to handle that properly, then you're just going to keep getting all these little faults along your code, and you're just going to be kind of pissed off the whole time and run into issues. So if you're dumb like me, you probably didn't know this ahead of time, but there's a lot of little mathematical tools that we can use to help facilitate moving our bytes to the right or to the left, right? So working through this, the main function here, right, is a shell file variable. And all that's doing, what we would give it, is something like a Metasploit framework shellcode output that we output from the argument with C to file, wherever it is. I tried doing this while you were chatting, and CrowdStrike was like, dude, what are you doing? And I was like, yeah, that's fair. And I just didn't have enough time to put an exception in. So my bad there, everyone. But ultimately, what we want to do is we want to find that shell file and we want to read it into this variable, right? We take that and we then shove it into another variable, which is calling a function. Sounds very complex when we say it out loud now that I'm talking out loud, but it is relatively easy. We take that function, we call it encoding text, and our function is CC, right? Caesar cipher, pretty simple. Now, there's probably going to be some whizzes in Python here who are going to look at this code and be like, bro, what is this spaghetti mess? And to them, I answer, you're right. It's completely spaghetti. But if you've never coded anything like this before, it's helpful to see what the process is step by step by step by step, right? Additionally, if you screw something up along here, you can start doing prints, right? Print step 2. I want to see step 2. Print step 3. I want to see print step 3. But basically, what we do inside this Caesar cipher, the very first thing we have to do is we have to modify the data so that we can work with it. Because if you export from Metasploit is going to give you hex code that Python doesn't recognize as hex code. And it's just text, right? And we're reading it as text. So we need to take that text and then turn it into a number. So what we have to do first is make sure that we have the very first thing that Metasploit kicks out, which is unsigned character buffer, right? It gives us a little array. We have to kick that out, replace it, put it with nothing. We then have to find all the new lines. We have to find all the semicolons, all the double quotes, all the backslashes, all the X's, until we're left with nothing but just FE48, FC07, right? And then what we can do from there, nice little trick, is we can use a for loop where we say for I in our shellcode hex here, which would be our now modified data to be worked with. We want to take every 2. And so we're using a modulus. And for those who don't know what modulus is, like me for the very long time, it's basically the remainder. So if we said like, hey, 2 modulus 2 is equal to 0, like, yeah, okay, that's right. That's 0. If you did 1 modulus 2, it would technically be -1. So for every 2 characters that we find, we're going to take that and create what we call our byte, right? Which is going to take those 2 characters, put them together. We then want to turn it into an integer. But because it's a, what is it? UTF-8? I think it's UTF-8. Yeah, good thing to remember. This is how simple malware dev is. You don't necessarily have to know that, right? But all you really have to know is we need to take this 2-letter hex code or number and turn it into 0 to 256. So that's what we're doing with this 16. We're saying, hey, this byte is now an integer, right? And then when we come into it next, we take that byte again, which is now an integer, and we're adding our offset. In this case, we set the offset to 0, so it would only print out. If you said FC, it would only be FC. But if we did 1, it would be FD. So on, so on, so on, so forth, right? We then want to modulus that number over 256 because in Python, it goes from 0 to 256. And if it goes over, so let's say we have FF, the next in the equation is not D0, right? It's 0, 0. So we need to be able to go back to that 0 number, else we're going to have all those segment faults. So we modulus that because Python doesn't care. It's going to take this and go, all right, here's a hex byte. And if it's a 0 through 9, like a 0009 kind of hex code, it's only going to print out X or 0x0 or 0x9, right? It's not going to be the 2 digits that we actually need. So we want to take the last piece of the hex, and if it's equal to 1, we're just going to add 0 to it. And then if that's the case, actually this should be back. There we go. That looks a little bit more in line with the actual script. So the reason why we don't want it there is because if we put it here, we're never going to put an X in front of it again, right? So now that we have our 2-character or 2-digit hex code, we just put it back into the same old /X format that C expects and our byte. And then we just add it to the buffer. And again, wildly inefficient, right? Wildly inefficient. But it gets the point across on like, what is the step by step that we have to do in order to move our byte to the right, right? It's probably the most that we have to do here, but ultimately we're trying to learn from the process because then we can take this and we can condense it. We can make it nicer. We can say, okay, instead of this shell code, now we're going to go ahead and work with bytecode. And that's what we'll do in some of the later labs within this first part too, where we're not just working with text files. We're also working with reference files and bin files, right? So we can do all that and we can kick that back out. And now we have obfuscated shellcode. And what's dumb about this obfuscated shellcode is this will beat the majority, just doing this to your like Metasploit shellcode, right? This will beat the majority of at-home AVs, except for Windows Defender. You're never getting past Windows Defender. Like, I don't know what it is. They've taken their stuff pretty seriously.
Defender's gotten good. Yeah.
10 out of 10. They're probably my favorite, like, for free AV. If you have anything, like, Defender's all you really need, right?
May I
jump in?
Yeah, no, it's fun. I see a couple questions coming through in chat trying to understand, is the course kind of about writing shellcode or only these loaders or these obfuscation tricks? Because I know in my mind, I'm thinking, this is like the tip of the iceberg. We can do Caesar cipher, or we can hide it in IP address octets, or we can, mask it in what would be like an image steganography thing. If we're going crazy, we could do weird, wild, wacky, fun stuff. So I don't know, would be curious about, is the course laser focused on this for our part 1? And then how do folks really kind of mentally separate what shellcode is to start with and then what these loaders are? How do they differ in that? If you can go high level for a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the beauty about cyber, right? We have no dictionary that really like outlines exactly what is what. Malware, I think, is one of the most ambiguous terms that we have within the industry to be alongside vulnerability scanning and pen testing. No jabs there, no jabs. But like, So like when we talk malware, some people look at malware and they go, oh, so Trojan horse, or malware, oh, that's ransomware, or C2, or in this case, when we're talking about malware for this like first three parts, we're talking about shellcode loaders specifically. So we're not writing the C2s, we're not writing the shellcode themselves, because ultimately we're not writing the C2. So we can use the products that we have available to us, whether that's through free products like Metasploit and Mythic, which is what we use for the course, just because they're so, I think they're phenomenal. They're great
I'm
tools.
so glad you put Mythic in there. I love Mythic.
I love it too. Like the amount of effort that has gone into that tool set and made for free is insanity. Like it's just a brilliant tool, right? And not everyone has access to something like Cobalt Strike, or isn't a real criminal and is going to just steal Cobalt Strike. So we got to show different ways of executing code. I mean, I've run red teams where we've run Metasploit in the environment because we have about a week left. We haven't really been getting anything, and we just need to go hard, right? And we still didn't get caught. And it's because we're working through our loaders. And once you're loaded into memory and you're running, it's a lot harder to be caught by static AVs or older AVs. More modern stuff is probably going to get captured, but we want to build onto that, right? So in this case, we're focusing on how to take those C2s that we have access to and load their C2 application, whether it be from a stage 1 to a stage 2 or stage 0 to stage 1, whatever it may be, right? Load those in via our own custom loaders. So it's a lot more of the building the application that is going to execute that C2 code than building the shell code itself to go out and be unique. I think in later iterations, it probably is a good idea to kind of go over some of that stuff, because there is some genuine good techniques today that can be used that will evade detection. But you really don't need to go that deep to have very viable malware for sure.
Another interesting question, if you're willing to kind of go on, I don't know if you've got more to showcase for your demo, or more Python to dig into.
Unfortunately, I don't know. Yeah, we could talk about the cool, the formatting the text, but
No, I saw one question come through because I think obviously if you're willing to dance with this, I know it's not so to say a buzzword, but more the hot topic of, hey, hang on, what about all the LLMs? Is it going to be able to detect the malware? What about 0 days? Can AI find our 0 days? Can you dance with that? I don't know. What's your hot take?
yeah.
Yes, no, up, down?
All right. I like when people, talk today about, oh, malware is going to be devved by LLMs, and it's going to be the best code, dynamic all the time, just changing. You're like, yeah, one day for sure. Like we are running a hot minute quick to that, right? Like it is coming fast. Is it today reality? Absolutely not, right? Like look, I don't mean to bash too much on Devon AI, but let's be honest, Devon AI is a great example of this, right? They came out, they were like, best platform ever, going to replace all your devs, and people bought into it. And then we got back the actual coding accuracy, and it was like something silly, like 26% accuracy, right? It was like stupid low. And the fact is a lot of LLMs still are stupid low. Do they spit out decent code? Yeah, 100%. But you have to understand code in order to go back and fix all the issues that it's going to create. Eating my own hair there. So it's like, yeah, it's going to be a problem. But today, the fact is most threat actors are not writing their malware using AI. Like, they just aren't, because it's not efficient enough. It's not accurate enough. It'll get there, maybe 5 years, depending on the advancements of other technologies and how we train these LLMs. But right now, we're not anywhere near the alarmism that we see a lot from the industry.
Cool. Next question, if I may ask, because I know, hey, we did get a little bit of the Python code up in action, and we got to see some of the obfuscation and the evasion tricks that we'll be building more and more and more. can I ask? And I don't know if it's getting too edgy or not, but you're bringing this into when you're doing real tests, obviously up against that AV and that EDR solution. We just mentioned Defender's gotten pretty darn good. Are there any others? And I don't want to. This isn't by any means name and shame, but nor one way or the other.
I
But
feel like
could
I'm
you?
being baited into saying Huntress. You know, say
No,
Huntress,
no,
Huntress.
not at all, not at all.
I think if you for business aspect, right? Your big players in the space of AVs of importance are really the Carbon Blacks, the Sentinel ones, the CrowdStrikes, the Huntress, the people who use a lot more machine learning in an effective manner, right? Like, I don't want to bash too much on a live stream for companies because
No, yeah, I'm
maybe
sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
one day they might consider me as a resource to talk to. I don't know. Maybe we'll say they have to sponsor me first. But we for the longest time, my most hated AV was like Trend Micro, right? Like,
Okay.
because it was a paid for platform that was so simplistic to get around their mothership callbacks. Like, I remember doing a red team, and this was like probably more than that. It must have been 6 or 7 years ago at this point. I remember doing a red team where we took the laptop offline because we saw that there was probably traffic going over to the home server in the network. And the moment we took it offline and we executed our code, nothing flagged. Like, it was very blatant code. Like, we were just trying to see how far we could really take it at this point because we had already gotten all of our objectives. We wanted to make sure that we could do some wins, see where they started catching us. Took it offline, executes, plug it back in, doesn't even care, still lets it run. Nothing happened, no alerts, no nothing. And I remember like seeing that, and that was one of my first times in the civilian market. We're just doing red teams. I was like, it's this simple. Like, we spend millions a year buying 0 days from all these like tech goons, and all I had to do was concatenate and hex code the malware, and now we're good to go. So they used to be that way. I know they've made some improvements. I haven't seen what they've made recently, but for at home, if you're going to use anything, use Defender, or if you can purchase something like a Carbon Black or CrowdStrike or a Huntress or one of those, invest in those because they are infinitely better. But that's kind of where I sit right now with AVs.
Sweet. Thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to throw a polarizing or incendiary question in the mix, but I thought that would be something that folks are asking.
Yeah.
A couple cool ones that are coming through, though, and I think will be really tactical for what we get into in the first bit of the course was, hey, how do you kind of test your bypass, your obfuscation, what you're building out? How do you do that up against the antivirus that you're up against without spilling the beans, letting the cat out of the bag? I don't know. Are there tools? Are there ways to do that smartly? And will these techniques or the tricks, will they still be doing well? Will they still be sustainable up against a new or modern EDR? Or do we still need to get a little bit crafty?
So in this first part, I'm going to tell you, you're probably not getting past CrowdStrike or any of the big boys, right? Like, that's just kind of the fact of the matter. There is a lot more that goes into this. There used to be websites like antiscan.me, which were very obviously run by criminal groups, which had their own little testing farm, similar to the way VirusTotal was before they got sued by everyone. Though, unfortunately, as we were building out this course and translating it for you, for the just hacking, they shut down. They got shut down. So right now, a lot of our own testing is internal, built on our own proprietary testing mechanisms, right? Wouldn't be sharing those just because I don't want to get sued. I've already been close enough by all the phishing I get to do and, buying up random domains that I think are hilarious. But there is ways of going about it, but it is a very heavy investment by yourself, right? Because you are purchasing all the AVs. You have to spend the money. You have to kind of hide the fact that you're an offensive security testing firm or testing dude. Yeah. Don't worry, I don't have Huntress, so you guys won't sell to me. but you have to put that investment in, and then you have to start going through and seeing, all right, just from base level calls, what is actually calling out. Build your own firewall, start blocking some of those calls, make sure that it doesn't detriment the actual AV detection, because they do have countermeasures for those kind of sandbox environments as well. So it's a lot of research, not going to lie, with the more advanced stuff. With the junior stuff, the low level hanging fruit, the at home AVs, stupid simple to find. That's for free. Just keep running it in a VM, refresh, run in a VM, refresh, those kind of ideas. But that's basically where we're at right now. Until another anti-scam me comes out, we're kind of at the investment of self.
No, I get that. I feel like I've been slowly trying to build out the different virtual machines or lab environments with the different security solution provider, just so I can poke and play one at a time. But you're right. No longer with anti-scan me, you don't have kind of that private test. Well, uploading something to Virus Total, it very well could just, again, share that with all the others, which isn't exactly what you wanted for your offensive work to begin with.
Yeah.
Well, I love hearing a couple of the Easter eggs that you kind of squeeze in here and there about the stuff that you're up to between, the phishing effort or the domains or stuff that you tend to do for your own work and activities. Are there any stories that you might be able to tell and are willing to tell that could tie a little bit well back into what we're starting with for WMD number 1? Knowing that there's going to be 2 and 3, and maybe we'll time into, those courses will dive into the stuff that we'll do in the continuation of these stories, but do you have any cool tales from the trenches that tie back to what we're chatting about?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few. Like when I gave the DEF CON 30 class, right there, it was a little chaotic. It was the first time we ever done training in DEF CON, right? So some of the classes didn't go off because COVID, unfortunately. So I had a bunch of these other students jump in, a few people who didn't necessarily sign up for the class, but they were like, all right, I'll take it. I already paid my course dues, so we'll do that. I've since seen them move on and build their own variations of what we talked about and expand upon what we talked about in that course, to the extent to where it's like, this is borderline mania of this is not getting caught, getting down to the kernel level or disabling protections to the AV engines themselves. Like they just took those basics and they grew from them. I know one of the fun things that had happened while we were writing the course, I think Lily was still working with me at that time. We actually were doing a red team, and the trusted agent had changed halfway through our red team. They didn't tell us. So I'd been emailing this guy. The guy had left the company. I'd been emailing, nothing's happening. We've had malware in their environment for like 2 months at this point.
Oh, no.
And it was like the stuff that we were trying to build into the course and work through. Lily and I are working through that course, right? Okay, let's test it out. Let's see how far down the basics can we do or get to before we start getting caught. And we're going through it. And that's how we ended up finding the new trusted agent. Was we just started creating a bunch of Windows alerts on someone's machine, and they called IT, and then IT was like, wait a second, this is kind of fishy. And then it bubbled up, and they started to IR until they realized that one of the files says, hey, this is X red team. Can you give us a call at, and then my phone number. And then the guy calls me and goes, we have a red team? Like, yeah, man, we've here's the contract. Here we go. Good to know no one ever mentioned it to you. But yeah, we just kind of dialed back down the basics of the course to see at what point would it start making alerts. Basically, we had to go all the way down to the basic reference file without obfuscation. So you can get away with a lot, especially considering a lot of companies don't like to spend a lot of money.
Wow.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite one.
Yeah. Well, goodness, I feel bad. I'm a little bit bummed that we couldn't get to light off any fireworks or do any cooking show magic. But thank you for cracking open the code to see, hey, some of the starting shellcode loaders and obfuscation stuff. Would you mind kind of talking through what you had schemed up and what, at the very least, students can still totally do within the lab environment, within the virtual machines that are all provided and included alongside WMD1, and then what will continue to be WMD2 and 3. I saw a mention in the chat that said, "Hey, we're looking for that zero to hero malware development course." I'm like, "Well, we're getting closer, but we got to put the building blocks in place and lay the foundation first." We got 1 out of 3 so far.
Yeah, so two and three should be relatively quick now that life's calmed down a little bit more, right? But the so first part is just, we're really focusing on the basics. When we gave this course, we tried to cram it in within 20 hours initially, and we almost didn't even make that, right? We were expanded. We were cutting a lot of things at the class level. So there's a lot of content that goes into this. There's a lot of explanations just to generally understand what's going on. So in this first part, it's learning a little bit about the different types of C2s, because honestly, not everyone knows that there is 2 different types of C2s between like asynchronous and synchronous, right? Using free stuff. So if you've never used Metasploit because you have this script kiddie mentality about it, why? Right? Learning how to use that a little bit more in some of the cool tools that it comes with, like with MSF Venom and whatnot. Then we get into Mythic. We learn how to build a payload out of Mythic, how to download that, use it, manipulate it, whatever you need to. And so the main focus there is between our shellcode loader from CrowdStrike and using reference files, and then obfuscating all of that so that you're defeating, to an extent, that static analysis from the AV EDR level. Right. So if you just put it on disk, what's the chance of actually, no, this is going to make an alert, right? What the hope and goal is to iterate off of that. So we start off with encoding, because encoding is simple, right? We're not breaking data integrity for the most part. Right. There's an easy same key to same back with a Caesar cipher. You can't go 25 forward and then 30 back. That just doesn't work. Right. In the next iteration, WMD2, we're going to be focusing much more on process injection and other types of code injection techniques that mimic similar to what like DD Auto does, where it process injects into process injection. Right. Like we just want to hide with the noise, trying to take our shellcode loaders and C2 loaders to be looking a little bit more like real applications, because that's where you typically don't get kicked off the box. Even if it's not assigned binary, if it doesn't look like it's malicious, then you're good to go for the time being, right? So we're going to go over that. And then we get into encryption. And everybody loves encryption because, they're like, AES 256, hell yeah. And they think it's super cool, and it's a pain in the butt. I like to teach encryption with the Camila encryption, because it's, you should never use it in the wild because it's mathematically broken. But it's something different, right? Everybody wants to use this generic AES 256 because it comes with Windows 32 API. I mean, that's good. But if you learn how to use something from like OpenSSL, right, and how to import and how to utilize that and pull from that and read the documentation and understand what's going on, now you can use any encryption method you want. And the more novel that you get at times, the harder it is to reverse engineer or discover what's really going on. So that's part 2. Part 3 is all about dynamic sandbox evasion, right? How to do sleep skipping detection, how to detect if you're in a VM, how to detect if you're even in an environment where it's a sandbox for an AV, right? My personal favorite from there is taking a Windows message box and having it pop up on the screen in a 1 pixel by 1 pixel area. And AVs, I love them, but like the more dumb AVs will just go, oh, there's an OK box, and they click OK, right? Because what they're doing is they're going through the process. If this is an installer, what is the installer doing, right? So with the OK box, if it gets clicked, you say, all right, return 0, quit. And then the AV will kick it out and go, dude, you're good, right? Or like with sleep skipping, we'll learn how to use CPU ticks instead of sleep, because sleep is so common in trying to time out an AV's sandbox. They just skip it. They go, speed up time. We don't need this. But what they can't skip, or at least to my knowledge from an extent of what I know, right? Can't skip CPU ticks. CPU ticks happen so that the computer can stay in timing. So you log that, you sleep, you wait, and then you check that value for what it should be. And if it doesn't match, return 0, right? And so you start to pick that up. And so when you build upon that defeating static analysis into now we're English, we're defeating that very simplistic AV sandbox. Yeah, it may go up to the mothership, and a week later you may be caught. And 90% of the time, when I write malware, it's usually not a shelf life of longer than a week. But when do you really need more than a week, right? If you get code execution, you get persistence. How many times do people actually reset their computers? Like I think that this computer has been on for maybe 45 days, and I probably should shut it down. But it's protected. I think we'll be fine.
No, I'm right there with you. I think I'll probably just leave the thing on. It's basically a server.
Yeah, and the actual servers are back there, and I think they keep
Nice.
crashing more often than my computer for sure. It's better than my work laptop for sure. It's blue screening.
Well, goodness gracious, I and just thankful. Super appreciate you. Hey, starting this, this effort, trying to carry Windows malware developments part 1, soon to come part 2, part 3. You can snag part 1 right now if folks are interested. But we will be upfront. Hey, it's incredible to dip our toes in the water with some of the obfuscation techniques for shellcode loaders, but I know there is more to do, and it's just the beginning. But we're super excited on all the things coming up. So thank you again and again and again, Dahvid. And hey, how can folks get in touch with you if they'd like to learn a little bit more? I don't know. Love to give you the call to action if you've got one. If anyone wanted to keep in touch.
Yeah, the Folsom State Prison is a wonderful place where I live. So if you want to write a letter there, I can receive it. My time is nearly up here. But no, if you want to get a hold of me, you can reach out to us on the Cyber Idiots. I think we have all our contact information up there. LinkedIn's probably the easiest way, honestly. Yeah, LinkedIn. I have a social media problem with, you know how it goes. So probably the easiest way. If you have questions, I'm not going to hang up on you and turn away and be like, no. So reach out at any point in time. I'm happy to answer anything.
Well, we will have this live stream saved, stored, recorded, and available on demand for folks if they did want to catch it later, tune in. But I'm gonna say, I'm gonna fall on my sword. Hey, I would love for us to be able to get together again and maybe really ace more of the demo. I think we all got a little bit sidetracked. Wild West Hacking Fest out on travel, a couple technical difficulties between laptop, desktop, whatever. I don't know, EDR gets in the way here and there. So it'd be really, really cool if you're ever up for it. I don't know, you and I can get together for a video, maybe pre-record something and get things situated so it's not the frantic frenzy of live stream. But thank you, everyone else, for tuning in and hanging out with us. Really, really excited about the launch and release of WMD1 Windows Malware Development. We've got more coming down the pipe, really cool stuff coming for later this month and next month. I think we teased some of the reverse engineering or RE work. Of course, Dark Web is still available. OSINT is available. We'll have OSINT Level 2 coming up. We'll have forensics later in the month. So just all awesome stuff. But thank you so much for hanging out, Dahvid. I know we're at the top of the hour, and I think we should probably tune this thing down.
I mean, say so. Yeah, I don't have enough Red Bull over here, so yeah.
I saw that file name though. What was it? Red Bull sugar free?
Oh, it's Red Bull sugar free 24-ounce grape flavored .pie. Bring back the old watermelon flavor though. That was a dope flavor.
Excellent.
Yeah. Sponsor.
Thank you so